We had no entrepreneurs in our family. I had no business acumen. I didn't know what a LLC was. All I knew is that I had to become a business owner. Anytime someone told me I couldn't, I was going to do it.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. Excited this year. And here's what I'll say, not just because I get to talk to Rahz today, because that's going to be probably one of our best podcasts throughout the year. It's because we made a goal that we would interview 100 Black men in 2024. And here we are in 2024. This is day this is December 30th as we're recording this call today. So let me take out one more day. But Rahz, you are number 105. And so we have now, not only did we interview 100 Black men, but we surpassed what we were going to do. And I'm not going to give up. I've already set up a whole bunch of podcasts for next year. I'm going to start an additional podcast. It's not going to be called Journey to Freedom. I'll have to look up the name of it. Something Bold Living, I think is what it's. Something Bold Living that I'll start next year, because I've had so many other men and so many other folks that say, I want to be on your podcast. I'm like, well, this one's for the Black men. It's been pretty fun. We also have, in addition to it, this about 4 weeks ago, we started a podcast called Why Love Waits. And Why Love Waits is, as I've been going through this journey of why did I need to do Journey to Freedom? Why are we working with Black men? Why are we trying to create a place where people can see what others have done to be successful? I realized that relationships are just as important in our lives. One of the things that we talked a lot about as a theme has been, what it means to be a dad. And not from the perspective of kids need a dad, but the perspective of what it means for us to be able to be a dad, and the joy and the fulfillment and who we become as a result of doing that has just been phenomenal. And so, but the other part of it is just relationships. What does it mean to be a great husband? What does it mean to, take care of your wife and at the same time? And so, and serve her and do things that, because I don't know, Rahz, if you've heard this statistic, and this is one of the reasons we started it, that 50% of Black women over the age of 40 have never been married. Wow, I looked at that and I said, and there's no other demographic that's even close. In the 1950s, we were about 20% of Black women that were over 40 had never been married. Now we're over almost 50%. And we're just trying to figure out what is going on there. Why is that? Because if God created us to be with each other, that we have a helpmeet, that if that's the case, what is happening in our culture? What is happening in our world? And so we begin to discuss that. And so on Sunday nights, we're doing a live podcast. We'd love for you to join in. It's on YouTube with a panel of women who are telling us exactly what they believe we should be doing. And then we're able to respond to them like, where did you get that? Like last night, my mom told me not to ever trust a man. Don't, keep separate money from him. Don't, all these different things. And they talked about the pool of men and that kind of stuff. So that's called Why Love Waits, part of the Journey of Freedom process that we're doing. And so we'd love for you guys to join that. But today, we're going to talk about to Rahz. And we think about what in life you get to do in order to serve a person. I was telling him before, I said, my whole belief now, and why I feel like I'm in purpose, is because I said, dear Lord, give me the wisdom to do what you put me on this planet to do in a way that serves you or pleases you and serves others. And if you can do that, I think that's what fulfilled life comes in. I'm going to ask you here in a minute, Rahz, about what success means to you. But when I think about Black men that are struggling, I get to do this. I'm going to take 14 Black men down to Alabama. We're going to go to Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery in the end of January. And I went on this tour last year and I was just blown away because history leaves a whole bunch of clues of the people the giants that we stood on and the things we're able to do and our opportunities that we now have. And if we're not taking advantages of some of those opportunities because we're stuck in these belief systems that don't serve us, it just drives me crazy. So we're going to take in a group down there and we're going to see if they can come back and be some mentors. But Rahz, I want you to start with your story. I want you to start where you got to be, how you got to be where you are, what it's like to serve others in the things that you do, and what you see as your future. After we talk about your story, I want to talk about, what it is that we can continue to do as Black men in order to make this world this incredible place that it can absolutely be if we're in the right space. So go ahead and tell us your story, and then we'll just kind of move on and chop it up from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Brian, for having me on your podcast. Being number 105, it's an honor. And I really have to say that because it's so cool to have men of color being willing to lift each other up and have a conversation about some of the things that we're culturally not doing. We're not talking about these conversations enough. So I'm thankful to be here with you today. My story, I don't think it's unique at all. I think it's one that people have heard before, but I just put a unique spin on it. I was born with my right leg shorter than the other with no quadricep or hamstring. So I have a disability, a 3.5-inch difference in my right and my left leg. So I tell people that I was labeled disabled before I was even born because coming out with a disability, being a Black person, and having a mom who's addicted to crack cocaine gave me 3 strikes before I even had a chance. And the reason that I'm here to share with you this story is because I had a powerful Black woman, my grandmother, Miss Elise Slaughter, who gave me the growth mindset very early in my life to understand that anything I wanted in life was going to come down to me creating it intentionally and doing the work to get it. It was not going to be given to me. And it started with this disability. I was told multiple times by multiple doctors that I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 18. I had teachers and athletic coaches tell me that I would never be able to play sports like the other kids. And most importantly, even my mom believed that when they told her that. And I can share with you that and when I was 12 years old, I was one of the first people in the United States to have something called the Elizarol. It's a surgery. I went to Springfield, Massachusetts, and I had 3 rings around my leg, 22 pins, and a crank. And what this device did is it was going to straighten my leg, and then it was going to lengthen it. Now, the challenge here is that even as a 12-year-old boy, I was very inquisitive. And at the end of 6 months, my leg was straight, but I asked the doctor a very strong question. Hey, doc, how is my leg going to stay this way now that it's straight? And he looked at me and he said to me, you're going to wear a brace the rest of your life. And I said to him, okay, I'm going to wear a brace the rest of my life. But you told me and you told my mother that you were going to fix me. I didn't come here with a brace, but now I'm going to live with a brace for the rest of my life. And he says, that's the way the surgery works. You don't have a quadricep or hamstring. Now, I was 12 years old. I did not have a degree in anatomy, physiology, and biomechanics at the time. But what I can share with you is that now I understand what he was trying to tell me is that he didn't have the answer either. He gave me 2 weeks to go to Long Island. And this is going to bring it full circle for you because you're taking a group of men to Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery. My grandma was born in Mobile, Alabama. Okay. And she had a very strong faith. And these 2 weeks, I got to go to Long Island, New York from Springfield on a bus, a Greyhound bus with my mom. And she told me, looked me in the eye and says, you know what? You were born this way. God made you this way. You should stay this way. And I didn't know what that meant, but all I knew is that I wasn't going to have any more surgeries on my leg ever again. Mm-hmm. And the doctors were trying to convince my mother to bring me back to Springfield, Mass, to have the second part of the surgery, which is the lengthening part. Now, when you haven't gone through puberty yet, your bones are still pliable. And I thought, you know what? No, I don't want to go back and have the surgery. I'd already been bullied. I'd had crutches my whole life. We were impoverished. I had all these things that were building up. And now I know that they were called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. But when I was young, they were just my life, right? These were just my struggles. But when I moved it, and when I spent some time with my grandmother, she started to tell me things that I'd never heard before. Now, Dr. B, I got to tell you, she was a person who had a second grade education. So
Okay.
she wasn't someone who was reading books. She wasn't someone who was very educated, but she was wise beyond her measure. And the reason that she was so wise is because it came from her heart. That's where she spoke.
Yeah.
And, after that, I said to my mom, you know what? I think I want to live here. I want to live on Long Island, because at the time we were living on Utica, New York, which is upstate, just north of Albany, New York, for those who are watching and listening. And the reason that that's pertinent in the story is that I was changing my location. And at times when you change your location, it allows you to change your mindset because you see different things. You experience life differently. And I went from a small town, basically corn-fed and no jobs, to Long Island, New York, the Gold Coast of New York, wealth everywhere, cars, houses, and I'd never seen a Lamborghini, a Porsche, or any of that. But when I first landed on Long Island, the first house I saw was about 10,000 square feet with 5 different cars. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I made it. I'm so excited. I got to go to a great school because of my grandmother. She had a 1-bedroom apartment that just happened to be on the other side that gave me the ability to go to this great school. See, proximity is important. And for your listeners, like we hear, why don't Black people get the opportunity to shine? Why don't we get the opportunities and the resources? It's because we're not given that, because they try to keep a lot of us in one place. Mm-hmm. And if they keep us in one place, the ghetto, whatever shell that we call it, then we need to move out. But the one way that my grandmother believed is that education was the key. If she said, you need to go to this school, you need to be exposed to these people. And what that really meant was money, resources, and connections. And through that, I got to go to a great school, got to meet some great people. And my mindset, the paradigm of going from poverty to the next class in life changed. Now, it didn't make me rich, didn't change, but what I started to see, what I started to experience changed, and I started to believe in myself. And in believing in myself, I went through high school, did what everyone told you had to do, but I still felt like I wasn't measuring up, because at the time, no one was assisting me. Like, when you're in certain different areas, you have people who are able to give you the resources, tell you, hey, here's mentors, here's what you should do, save your money, here's the things you should do. In our community, we didn't have that. And my grandma didn't have the ability to tell me the things that she had never experienced in her own life. But I did have the ability to pay attention. And one of my friends, his dad, who had a very big house, great family, I asked him, I said, what do you do? And he says, I'm in business. And that's all I needed to hear. I'm in business. Because after that, I just went on a tear. I started a hat company. I go to Manhattan and Chinatown. If you guys know what Chinatown is, all fake stuff. I would buy it, bring it back to Long Island and sell and starter hats to kids. I started doing entrepreneurship at a very early age. I knew that that was my ticket out. Mm-hmm. I started in my first, right out of high school, I got certified as a personal trainer. Yep, a personal trainer. I'm going to do the thing that people would never think. I'm 5'4". I limp with 3.5-inch difference in my right and my left leg. And I went into a career that everyone's looking at your image. Why? Because I knew that if you tell me I can't, I must. Yeah. And I developed that belief system very early, that anytime someone told me I couldn't, I was going to do it. While doing that personal training, I went to school and I joined the wrestling team, because I wrestled all throughout high school and then into college. And wrestling was that one catalyst that gave me the belief in me when the academics weren't strong, when nothing else was strong. I could always go back to, you know what? I've achieved something here. I've won here. And then I knew that if I just pushed hard enough, I can keep going. Fast forward just a little bit, and I went through school, started my personal training business. I started a business called Metaburn Fitness on Long Island. The reason I share that is that we had no entrepreneurs in our family. I had no business acumen. I didn't know what a LLC was, an INC, a bank account. All I knew is that I had to become a business owner. Gotcha. I owned 3 different gyms in New York. And then in 2018, I decided to move to Florida with my wife. We started another gym here, and then COVID happened. Oh, gosh. And everything started over again, right? And the point to the story, people, if you're listening and watching, is that don't just get high on your own supply, because so often I started to read my own press clippings. I thought I made it. But one of the things that I didn't realize is that a pandemic can take it all away, and it did. I had to close all 3 of my gyms, plus the one here in Florida, in less than 60 days. I went from having a 6-figure income to not having an income. And if I didn't have the mindset training that I did over the last 20 years, I would have crashed and burned like so many others, because I went back to my books. I went back to my mentors. I went back to the things that I learned. And because I had learned some skills that would allow me to pay the bills, per se, right? Marketing, sales, operations, customer service, the ability to transfer your energy and knowledge to someone else. That was what allowed me to create the current business that I'm in, which is called the Unstoppable Teenager Movement, which I got to be really passionate about, because before I was in the business to make money. Now I'm in business to make a difference, to make an impact.
Yeah.
And now I serve teens and parents who are struggling with confidence, motivation, and social emotional skills so that they can thrive in all 3 major areas of their lives: school, sports, and life. And that's where we are today, Dr. B.
Oh my God, so much to unpack here, because there's, I'm loving what you tell me. I'm loving your story. Have you met Myron Golden yet, or been on some of his?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Supposedly, so he was going to be number 100, but he's stalling on me. But he told me he was going to do this podcast in a few weeks. So whatever he ends up with, but similar stories as far as your legs and not being able to do stuff. But at the other side of it is taking that adversity and making it something different. I had never heard of ACE before, adverse childhood experiences. You know, all I heard was, you are a special ed kid and you're not going to be able to do anything. That's what I was told. You can't read, you're 4th grade, you got, at that time back in, because I'll be 60 here coming up, dyslexia wasn't even a word that people were saying. Ultimately, that's what got me through school. I didn't want to go to college. Now that I know I went there, don't know if I needed to. But when I think of identity, and one of the things that I think hold us back a lot is, sometimes we don't know, we know who we are sometimes. We don't know whose we are. That's a big issue. But the identity that people put on us that tell us who we're going to be and where we're going to go. And I hear in your story, hey, I moved to Long Island. I didn't have anybody in my family that's doing business, but somehow you created an identity that said, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do this. Where did that come from? I know, your grandma didn't have the experience to help you, maybe, but she sounds like she gave you a lot of the identity that said, whether she said, boy, you can do anything you want to do, or what help me unpack that, what that looked like for you.
Absolutely. A lot of that came from her, though. She was the type of person that just did the things she needed to do, whether it's going to the Social Security building and getting an EBT card for us so we could have food, whether it's going to the church and bringing food in and talking to people. And when it came to business, I was blessed, like you said, to have been sitting in a diner at 18 years old, and a gentleman tried to pique my interest for a network marketing company called Metaluca.
I remember Metaluca.
This is where Myron's story crosses, right? And I met Myron through it when I was in the MLN, and I met this gentleman. But what changed my life was that he gave me a book, and he gave me a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by Brian Schwartz, and that book opened up a paradigm in my mind that I never knew. One, I hadn't read a book from cover to cover because there was no one that was reading books in my house. But I learned to read this book 1 page at a time, because I used to skip all the words that I couldn't pronunciate. And when you can't pronunciate a word and you skip the words, you lower your comprehension. So I never wanted to read because I was like, this is hard. I don't know how, and I didn't know how. And I didn't have anyone to tell me, hey, Rahz, reading is important, especially in our community, right? Now, if you could see behind me, I have books everywhere in my house because it's important. It's not just important. It's as important as eating food, breathing, if you really want to change your life. And I got this book, and the book opened up my mind to personal growth. And what I mean by personal growth is I didn't have any money, so I couldn't go to Tony Robbins events, and I couldn't hire a bunch of coaches. But what I did is I got some CDs and we burned them. And I started to listen to Tony Robbins every single day. And I was like, you know what? Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar. And then I got the opportunity to meet Jim Rohn. And right behind this camera, I have a picture with him. His last live speaking event in Dallas, Texas, I was there. And when I say that, people don't realize, because his business philosophy was so simplistic. It wasn't this elaborate NLP and all of this. It was beautifully do the right things, keep doing the right things, and you'll get the right things. And I've taken those principles, I've transformed them not only into business, but into my life with my family, my wife, my kids. And for your listeners, you don't have to have all the answers, but you have to find someone who does, and you model their behaviors, you model their core, and you can get what they have.
Oh my gosh. And then so true. And to think that you just started diving into people that can change the way you think. I mean, you brought up the word mindset, not too long ago. And you think about, how do we develop a mindset of success? And maybe you can talk about first what success is, and then what are some things. I know you read books and you talk to people, but maybe, if we're setting that mind, what it means to have a mindset would be just phenomenal if you could share that with us.
Absolutely. So success is something that I really love diving deep into. And when anyone asks me that question, success is going to be different to everyone. And as a human, we need to be clear on what that means for us. Otherwise, we're going to chase someone else. We're going to want what they want, but we don't know what they're willing to do to get what they got. So it's important for you to define with clarity what success. For me, success means doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, for as long as I want, with whomever I want. And what does that mean? My family, my friends, my community, and doing things in my world that will allow me to do that. That's why I get up early, stay up late, working hard, so that I can live that life. It doesn't mean that I have a 10,000 square foot house. It doesn't mean that I have a Lamborghini outside. It just means that I get to wake up and be grateful each and every day to know that there's food on my table, my bills are paid, and I'm serving my community. That is what success is for me. Now, how did I get there? 3 things. Number 1 is called your belief systems. You have to analyze your belief systems first before you can change anything. What are the disempowering beliefs that you've held on to your entire life? Speaking directly to the Black men who are watching this, we have a lot of disempowering beliefs that we think are empowering. This is my house. This is the way I do it. If you run around saying those types of things, you're going to be in trouble. I can't change. This is just who I am. That's a disempowering belief. See, if I believe that, I'd be in a wheelchair just like the doctors told me, but I'm not. I'm actually, I just finished running. I rode my bike 100 miles in April, and I plan on doing it again 2 times in 2025. How can I do that with one leg? Because of the power of the 6 inches between my ears. I do not allow any negative, disempowering beliefs to set in and manifest in my life. The second thing, attitude. You have to change your attitude. Your attitude can't be, they are against me, I'm not enough, those people are always trying this. We have to change how we see the world so the world sees us different. And the final thing is, once you have your belief systems, you have your attitude, you got to master your self-talk. What are you saying to yourself over and over and over again that's showing up and coming out of your mouth every single day? Here's an example. I used to think that I wasn't really great at math. Why did I think I wasn't great at math? Because I had some core experience of a teacher to tell me I wasn't great. But then one day I changed that whole narrative, and I started saying, I'm really good at math. I learned math just as easy as anyone else. And now I'm taking college math classes each day because it's not something I can't do. I just got to put a little bit more work. I got to find someone who can articulate it in the way that I get it. I'm a visual and auditory learner, so I need people who can teach me the way I learn. That's it. You want success? Beliefs, attitude, self-talk, you master those, you'll change your life.
When you think about just those three things, if people would spend their time working on that instead of working on all the things, the outside things that we can't do nothing, the contributing factors, I guess, is those things that Myra talks about all the time, is the things that are outside of you that you try to control. I'm doing tomorrow, I'm actually going to do and people will hear this after, so I'm saying tomorrow's December 31st, but I'm doing a goal setting workshop. And the thought on the goal workshopping is, if you focus on your goals, you will struggle. Because so many of our goals are these things that we can't control. I want to have 100,000 subscribers. I can't control how many people show up and listen to me, right? All I can control is the activity that I do on an everyday basis. I can't show up to work, and say, well, they have to do this, or I'm not going to be able to achieve. Well, no. What activities can you do to meet that outcome that you're trying to hit? And I think so many people did. One of the things you said is do what I want to do with who I want to do it with. And to me, that just signals, okay, I get to serve folks in a way that solves their problems. And that's going to be success to me and the joy that I have. I've been fortunate enough to be a track coach for the last 38 years of my life. And so I've coached Olympians, I've coached high school state champions, and I've coached junior high kids who can barely walk across without tripping over their own feet. And yet I know that the joy that comes from helping them become who that they need to be, and that person that they need to be, which is so cool. When I think about, one of the pillars that I have, with identity is trust. And I think one of the issues that we as Black men have is we don't trust anybody. In fact, I was on I had my panel that we're talking to on Why Love Waits, which is we're working with men and women in relationships on Sunday nights. And, he's like, I'm not supposed to trust somebody. I'm not going to trust nobody but myself. And I'm like, what a terrible life that's got to be. Like, he said, I'm in my second marriage. I don't even trust my wife. And he says, I got my bank account. She got her bank account. And we put a little bit of stuff together. I love her, but I don't trust her. I'm like, oh, my gosh. What do you do in this world of trust, and how do you approach people? And so many, for me, it's like, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Obviously different situations, I'm not going up and pulling up in the, in the hood or whatever it is to put my car keys on the counter. I'm going to walk away and go to the store and trust that you're not going to take my car. That's just silly, right? But I try to give people, hey, until you've done something wrong, I at least need to have a conversation with you. How do you approach trust? I mean, you're in business and you are working with people, and you can't talk to me.
Absolutely. That's a great question, my friend. I mean, well, you have to be willing to reflect and ask yourself, where did this programming come from? See, if we don't do the work on ourselves, we'll never be able to move forward. I had all of those, if you wanted, we know the story, right? Drugs, alcohol, abuse, fighting, pimping, all of that. We know the story. But if I would have let that programming manifest into me and been a man that I am today, I wouldn't trust anyone, because I didn't see trust in my youth. But I had to go and I had to find, how do I trust people? One, I had to trust myself. I had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn how to read the landscape. See, I'm from New York. So I'm walking down the street. I don't care if you're black, brown, yellow. If you're behind me, I'm going to know where you are. It doesn't matter, right? So I'm not putting a color on anything. I'm letting my spidey sense tell me exactly what's up. But if you stop me and say, hey, do you have the time? I'm going to look around, and then I'm going to be like, hey, yeah, time is this. And I'm going to keep moving, right? I'm going to trust that you're not there to hurt me. I also create belief systems that people are not out to get me. See, if I had a belief system that people are out to get me, they're out to steal from me, I wouldn't be able to be in business. And people wouldn't trust me. I have clients all over the country, and they get on a Zoom just like you and I are on right now, and they communicate with me about their biggest fears when it comes to their children and their families. And I can get them to understand, build rapport quickly, trust me, because I'm willing to transpose my energy with them, telling them, being vulnerable. And that's one of the biggest things that I share, especially with Black and brown men. We have to understand that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's power. Sharing your story. Like you mentioned, the great Myron, right? I love Myron because he shares his story so authentically, right? It's so beautiful the way he tells you exactly who he is, where I am, from the trash man to the cash man, right? That story resonates and it inspires, but more importantly, he's done the work so he can get to where he needs to get. So trusting yourself, working on yourself, that's how you're going to change to become the person that you want to become.
Gotcha. And along with trust, and I guess here's where, people say, well, you just want me to trust everybody. But one of the things that I find, especially in our culture, is I just say, I don't know how to do something. I'm terrible with money. I know I'm terrible with money because there's none in my pocket and I can't keep any. So that's like a clue, a success leaves clue, and you don't know There's never any money and you're always struggling. So I don't know anything, but I'm not willing to trust anybody, one, to tell them that I don't know, and then two, to get help. I mean, it's like, why are we so stuck on like these faults or these things that we don't know? I'm not saying it's a fault. It's just you don't know. You didn't brought up with it. You didn't see it. Nobody, gave you examples or showed you, modeled it for you. And then we go, okay, well, you won't tell anybody you're struggling because you don't trust anybody that they can help you. How do you get past that?
Oof. Well, my grandma would tell you, if you make your bed hard, you're going to have to sleep in it. So you just got to look at your results. If the results you're getting in your life aren't working, then you need to release those belief systems. You need to release that trust issue that you're having, and you need to find some new people to model, right? Showing up to this type of podcast, meeting people like yourself, listening to people that are where you want to be is the number one way that you can change where you are. Because I had a lot of those disempowering beliefs that you had about marriage. I never saw a successful marriage in my entire life until I got married. But I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to have a marriage that was built on distrust. I didn't want to have a marriage that was built on abuse. I wanted to have a marriage that was loving, that was connected. And how do I get there? I went and I said, okay, let's look at this. Oh, this guy dates his wife. Okay, what does that mean? Every Saturday he has date night. Okay, he's going to touch base with his children all the time. He's not looking for anything directly returned. He's just putting that energy out there. This is who I am. This is what I do. And that's how I've changed. And that's how I inspire others. Say, hey, if you don't like the way your family dynamics are right now, then you got to find one that you like and model their behaviors. You got to model their core facts. And then that's how you're going to change.
I love it. So when I'm doing my goal setting workshop tomorrow, a lot of it is going to be on the concept of be, do, have, right? And so becoming the person you need to be in order to do the thing in order to have. And in business, the things that I felt, I was a teacher and a professor and coach and did all these things before I ever went into business. And I started out into the multi-level world in the 2000s, and then 2008 hit. But a lot of what I did was, and I talked to another gentleman who was 19 and owned a whole bunch of cell phone stores. We were talking, doing this podcast, 29 years old now, multimillionaire, that, phenom guy and he said the hustle was do, have, be. He said all the folks I'm going to go do something. All of our goal setting things, I'm going to go do something. I got to do this. And maybe even when you're centered, I have to do the thing, I have to do being a personal trainer, and then I can own a shop or something without becoming the person who can do it well. Right, I think that's where I hear it, and then I have, right. So you go do it, and I fell into this. I went and did the thing. Hey, I'm doing the financial services, and then I go buy a Beamer, right. I go buy this car that I have no business buying because I don't have enough money to buy it, but I have it, right. Now I'm saying, well, now that they see me. Right, and this is big in our culture, right? Now that they see me with my shoes, my Jordans, and my car, and my chains, and everything, now I can become the person to fit into that. Why does that model not work? And then how did you become the person you want to be?
Ooh, that's a deep one. I mean, I think it's when you look at our culture, right? We know that we've always idolized those who had things. Mm-hmm. And then we would do whatever it took to get them. And it didn't matter if it was against our moral compass or not. We just wanted to have it. And I love that you said you got to do. So that's one of the proponents that I'm a big fan of. I don't tell my goals out in person and in public. I just do the work and I show up this way each and every day. People go, oh, how did you do that? How did you get that business to get to where it is now after just 4 years? Well, I put my head down. I paid my dues. I did the reps. And I showed up in 4 years. Year 1 was horrible. Year 2 was just as bad. But you'll never know that because I'm not going to sit there and tell you my woe story. I'm only going to tell you that I did the work. And in our community, a lot of times we want it fast. Dr. B, it's like, oh, I just want that fast money. I want that fast. I want everything that, all of these people have. And they're not willing to say, hey, there's no such thing as an overnight success. We all have ebbs and flows when it comes to success in life, in business, or whatever. And like you were sharing with yours. So I think that we have to, if you're listening it's crucial for you to figure out what you want and then do the work to get it. But like you said, you got to also become the person that actually can deserve those outcomes. Because like you said, you bought the Beamer. I had the car. I had things that I shouldn't have. I was telling my wife recently, it's New Year's Eve coming up, right? And like I used to go to Manhattan. I was out in the Hamptons doing all that stuff, and I'm spending $3,000-4,000 on bottles. And now I wish I had that money back because that was just crazy. I was doing it for the things. I wanted everybody to believe that I was something I wasn't, because that's not even who I am today. That was just what I was chasing because I believed that, because I saw that on TV and I saw people doing that. And, and that's what a lot of our culture has to deal with. And if we want to break it, they need to get around people who are not doing what society norms have told them to do.
Absolutely. And the other part of that is even more scary, it's like, okay, so I did the do, have, and then hopefully I could become that person. And the person, and you said exactly how you become it, right? Nobody gets to see you become it because it's all working on you, right? It's all that personal development. It's all those tapes that you listen to. It's all those books that you read. It's that proximity of people that I want to talk about in a minute. But the one that's even more scary is the have, do, be, where you start out, I'm going to find credit cards. I'm going to find whatever it is that I can, because I got to have it, that fake it till you make it. And I'm not saying that you don't, show up just as you're doing something, but in your mind, your mindset has to be a little bit different on the fake it to the make it, because your mind knows you don't have it, right? Your mind knows that you might be faking it to everybody else, but you still look in the mirror every second. And so we use our, like, these credit and all these, abilities to have these things first. And then we think, okay, now I got to go do, I bought this, I went to Home Depot and I spent a whole bunch of money at Home Depot. Now I got to go do something in order to make the money to pay that bill back. And now I'm behind the curve because because I already bought whatever I had. And now I can never become the person because I'm always chasing, all these haves, and we just keep buying stuff, and we're such consumers of having. How do we change that mindset to stop being a consumer first?
Well, I mean, this is going to be a curveball for you, but I believe it starts at home. I believe it starts at home with your children. We got to start with the youth. See, it's going to be very difficult to, and this is not a disempowerment belief. When they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, you can teach an old dog new tricks, but the dog has to want to learn those new tricks. And unfortunately, a lot of us have calluses on our bodies, not just on our hands. Our minds are callous to what we think we can't do, and we have to be like a certain way. So I believe that if we're going to change the way that our people see the world, we start with teaching financial literacy to kids. We start with teaching them belief systems. We start teaching them about confidence, right? Loving themselves, embracing their unique strengths and not just their limitations, not believing that they need the validation of others to show up a certain way. I'm 5'4", but nobody's going to ever tell me that I'm not the biggest man in the room. And I don't have a big head, but I'm going to be believing in myself. I always believe in myself. I'm betting on myself all day, every day, twice on Sunday, right? Because the reason that is that that's how we change. That's how we get create that. Oh, and the kids, the youth, that's when they're pliable. That's when they'll believe you, right? Like when people are looking at people and they say, oh, you know what? They're just that good. No, you could be a doctor. You could be this. And I believe that I love that you said, fake it till you make it. Don't tell your kids what they can. If your kid is not loving science, he ain't going to be an astronaut, right? So let's find his strengths and embrace his strengths, because that's how he's going to get the confidence to keep doing more, becoming more resilient in the face of adversity and pushing forward in life.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things that just to add to you is we have to model it, right? Because we can tell our kids all day long, this is the principles that I believe in. Really? I believe in not having well, Dad, I just see you keep using the credit card. I know. I know how much you make for it, especially when you're a teenager, right? And so modeling, and you talked about, an old dog, new tricks. One of the reasons when I first came back after 2008, I moved back to Colorado. I was in LA and, Southern California area. And then I came back to Colorado where I grew up. And the reason, that I came back when I'm thinking of it is because I just needed to find myself. And I worked in homeless services, and I ran a couple homeless services organizations. And what I realized is a disproportionate amount of Black men and women that are homeless compared to other races, as far as, that representing that part of society. But what I realized is that that's not where I belonged, because all I'm trying to do is put a Band-Aid on something that should have been solved way before. Like when you start hearing the stories of why somebody became homeless and why, a lot of it is mental health. I'm not going to say that it isn't, but some of it isn't. Some of it is just choices and decisions that were made, and then pulling yourself out of that when that mindset doesn't want to change anymore. When you're 60, 70 years old and you're homeless. And so I left that arena in that area because I said I need to get to people before they ever get there. Before they ever, if I can get to families and change the things and the way people are thinking, there's no reason. Like, I think of my family, your family sounds like it's the same. I can't imagine being homeless if I treat my family the way I treat them. There's just too many of them as places for me to stay that I would have to be out on the street at any time in my life, right? But then when I see these families and see how they pulled apart and it was all based on probably beliefs that should have never been part of who they are, and things that are there. And so and with that, I think you brought up the word proximity, which is, to me, is the people that you're around. How do you find rooms now or places where you can now begin to thrive instead of just show up in the room? And I think of, like, I don't know, barbershops and places that we go to all the time that don't serve us in very many ways. I'm not saying every barbershop doesn't serve you. I'm just saying the conversations that I've been around are ones that limit me instead of ones that push me up. How did you find and continue to find those rooms that will do that for you?
Yeah. I had to get out of. I had to see it quickly, and luckily, like I said, I ran across Tony Robbins' material, and I mention him a lot because it's not so much. He's not the person I follow today, because I don't have the same core beliefs that he has anymore. But to tell you that he shared with a very powerful message. And it's modeling, right? And it's an NLP technique, and you learn to model people's behaviors. You learn to model their thoughts, their actions, so that you can get their results. And I instantly, now that I'm in the room, I had to learn crossing, right? I could put on that white voice and, hey, Dr. B, it's Rahz Slaughter here. Pleasure to meet you. If I have to, right? You have to understand that you cannot walk into an executive office, or you can't be networking and not be able to articulate yourself in a professional manner that's going to get your message across, so people trust you, they believe you, and they're willing to collaborate with you. And we as a culture tend to idolize, like, even if you look at some of the greats, I like 50, right? 50 Cent. He is smart. He bounces from the boardroom to the record labels and all very easily, right? Because he still has that street mind, but he also understands how to run it, and he's not staying there. Snoop as well, right? And then you look at the ones who want to stay there. Like, you can't get out and go back and stay there. You can get out and then pull people along by giving them opportunities, but you can't pull them along by just dragging them. So I think the biggest thing is that if you're going to find rooms that you want to be in, and then find what they do, what books are they reading? What seminars are they going to? Who are they connected with? And then learn how to serve them. Don't just go and say, hey, Dr. B, I'd love for you to set up a call with me so I can meet Myron, right? You say, hey, Dr. B, like, I love being on your podcast. Is there anyone that you would like to have on your podcast in my network that I might be able to send your way? Now I'm serving you, not asking you for a handout. That's how we get up, is that when we start serving others and looking for opportunities that you can collaborate, but also that you can serve, you'll be able to get put in those rooms that will be able to turn those opportunities for you.
Oh, man, that's so true. And sometimes we think we just need to, if I could just be here. Well, what are you doing? And who are you becoming, right? That deserves to be in that room. I can remember Tony Robbins. I mean, I can remember I went to one of the seminars and I walked on these hot coals and, all the things that he does. And I think people should go to a Tony Robbins. I would not take that away. I love it. I think of like the stuff that I listen to is Zig Ziglar and, Jim Rohn and all those things you should go to. But sometimes I also think, okay, what do we need to do? Who do we need to become before we even go there? Right? What mindset do I have? Because I see a whole lot of people go to Tony Robbins and then come out of there and they know not what to do, right? Because they haven't worked on themselves even a little bit. And then they show up as thinking, well, I'm going to show up here. And that might be the change that they need, but realizing that, hey, this is going to take a little bit of time. I'm just starting that process. And then, you bring up people that, hey, look, this person in the back of the room, she just made $1 billion from, she went to like one of my seminars and she made $1 billion like 3 weeks later. And you go, okay, who was she before she went to your seminar? And what was her thought process? And you said that one thing, but you have to be in that room to be able to get that one thing, right? And there's so many of us that don't ever do this. I want to pivot a little bit to health. Because I think about what my statistics shows me that the average Black man is going to live to 72. That's scary to me because I'm 60, right? I'm getting ready to be at like 12 more years. No, I got to live to 100. I got to go. I got too much stuff to do. But what I think is it's not just the things we put into our body and our physical health, which I'd love for you to talk about as well. But it's also the mental health that goes with it. I think so much plays into when I see somebody who's in their 90s and, that is sharp and still has it all together. Their mental capacity and the things that they say and the things is so much different than the guy who's just living day by day. And you're in the fitness world, so you were and your own kids. Please walk us through some things that we can do to maintain that health, both physically and mentally.
Ooh, I love it. Your questions are fantastic, my friend. I really do appreciate you allowing me to share. I think that when it comes to overall health, we need to have a framework. Everything needs to have a framework. It makes it so that we can follow it and we can be consistent and develop the success habits to do it every day. When you said mental health, first and foremost, we have to not make that a stigma. Okay. Mental health. Because if we're not, because I don't care, you could be ripped and be broken inside, right? But the 6 inches between your ears is what you need to be able to reflect on, analyze on, and figure out what's wrong. Why do I think that way? And a lot of us don't even spend any time. It's okay to go to a therapist. It's okay to find someone to talk to because you need to know why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel. And so often we don't know that we have that ancestral damage or trauma that's passed down through our families. And that's what's going to hold us back from thinking, hey, I don't belong in that room. I have dyslexia, or I'm dark skinned, I'm light skinned, or whatever that is that we're thinking. That programming is what's holding us back. And it comes in with our bodies as well. Looking at what we eat. My grandmother is from the South. So yes, I still love some oxtails. I love collard greens, but I don't eat them every day. Right? Because if that's the diet that I eat, like you said, 72, the average Black man's lifespan, I'm going to have high blood pressure, diabetes, gout, all of those, right? And our people tend to have that. And so when I'm working with anyone, and I've been doing, and I'm always going to be, I identify as a healthy person, right? I told you I rode my bike. I have a gym right outside my office. It's part of who I am. And that has to be, it doesn't matter how my physical look, although we all are vain at some level, but I want to be able to perform. I want to be able to move. So I stretch. Think about stretching, mobility. Can you still touch your toes, right? When you get out in the morning, are you bent over and hunched over with a spine that's rounded? This is something that we don't get to hear a lot about in our community. And again, I'm going to go back to, if it's not happening in your community, find ways to either create it or go to the communities they're doing that, where they're going out and walking, when they're drinking water, when they're talking about health and vitality, not just money and material things, right? And that's the key. And finding a rhythm that works for you. You don't have to start at everything. We're coming into the new year. Pick one healthy habit that you're going to stick with for an entire year. Is that a 10-minute walk? Is that just waking up in the morning and taking some nice deep belly breathing so that you can connect with your source energy? There's so many things that we can do, and it's so imperative that we have these conversations and being open to having these conversations, and also being vulnerable to know what you don't know. If you don't know something, raise your hand. There's no reason for ignorance anymore in this world. We have the internet. We have everything at our fingertips. And yet we run around here and we keep saying that things and people are holding us all back. When we don't release that disempowering belief, we'll stay stuck in the mud.
Oh my gosh. And you hear, but Rahz, these pigskins, my grandpa ate them, my daddy ate them, I ate them too. These are good. You can't tell me these aren't good. Are they saying that because they know they ain't good? Is that why they trying to?
It's crazy. I get it. And those things, we all have that. We all have that cultural food. We just came out of Thanksgiving, right? I made a pot of collard greens and I had a turkey neck in there, and it was good. But we only eat that once a year because I can tell you that the fat in there, it was enough for the entire year.
Oh, I love it. What haven't we talked about that you want to make sure that we got about 10 minutes left here, that you would want to make sure that the folks that are listening to this, whether they're your folks or my folks or just folks that stumble upon it, what would you want them to know?
I'd love to just get in. Let's talk about the youth and let's talk about parenting, because I find that that's where we're talking a lot about change. I can see just from hearing you articulating the questions, I know you put some work into who you are today, right? But a lot of people, I want to go back to, what if they're the parents who are listening to this and watching this, they haven't done it? Where would they start? And they start with their kids. If we want to change the world, it's going to start with our youth. And that is the most important place to start.
And so, when we think about kids, I have 8 children and I have 16 grandkids now. And I think about, well, I just think about the time, that I think the greatest blessing is that I was in rooms of great men that were helping me become the man that I needed to be so that I could be the example to my kids. And of all the 8 kids, they're all doing, in my mind, they're all doing well. They're doing to their capacity what they could do. I'm so proud of them. But, for some of those folks, I was fortunate to have a dad in my home the whole time that I was there. There's a lot of people who don't. And so there's a lot of women that say, well, they don't need a man, or the men are saying, I don't, and so as you're working with the youth and you're working with kids, what is your, how do you help parents understand this, and be that without being that helicopter, I guess, parent that doesn't let your kid do anything, but at the same time, don't let them do everything, right? What kind of skills and things are you talking about?
Yeah, the first skill I always like to work with parents on is that your kid is not broken. You have to anchor that in. Your kid is not broken. And you have to parent the child you have, not the one you wish you had. See, so often we want to have this perfect child. We want to have this one that, he's going to be this. He's going to be a doctor, an astronaut, whatever. And then he comes out and maybe he isn't. Maybe he has a little ADHD. Maybe he has a little OCD. Maybe he has a little anxiety. And he's not that perfect child, but you're trying to fit him into that mold. And you don't know that every time you say, little Johnny, you're not this, all you're doing is giving him a little niche, and he's starting to believe that. And eventually he starts to act like that. So if you're a parent, I want you to parent the child you have, not the one you have. How do you do that? It starts with personality parenting. You're going to parent each of your children with their unique personality. They all are here different, and they have unique strengths. They have unique limitations. When you understand their limitations, you don't focus on those limitations. Oh, you know what? Your sister's so smart. Your brother is such a great athlete. If you say those things, even if you think you're not saying anything bad, you are creating trauma, because they're taking their little young minds who have not had the time to formulate and develop, and they're saying, all he talks about is how Brian is so smart, and how James is so tall. But I'm neither of those things. I must not be enough. I'm not enough. But then they get out in the street, and that one guy goes, hey, you see that pack of gum? Let's go steal it. Yo, you're my boy. And now there's a connection. And that that love, that significance that they need, they're getting it from someone else. And that's what we need to break. And that starts with making sure that your children all know how special and unique they are, but not by saying, little Johnny, you're 8 years old. I'm so glad you tied your shoe. No, because now he knows that you're just placating to his inability to do the things that his little brother is doing at 2. You want to make sure that every compliment is earned, not just given. And it starts with your ability to communicate as a parent. So when you see your children, you parent them with their personality, and you work on your ability to communicate to your children. That's step one.
Wow, Rahz, you said some things there that are just, you said parent the child you have, not the parent you want, not the child you want them to be. And I go back to my coaching, and I had an athlete, incredible track athlete, right? 7-foot high jumper. I got him over 7 feet. Not a good dribbler, not a good, 6'3", he's not going to, playing center for the school that he's at, but not. So I'm working on getting him a Division I scholarship, and working on, this kid I know can be an Olympian. I've coached Olympic high jumper before, right? And parent is like, but my child is ranked. My child is ranked in basketball. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? I mean, ranked 50 people said he's.
Who makes the ranking? Oh, yeah, you know what?
The person you're paying is who makes the ranking, right? But but when I think about that parenting, it's like, it's so ingrained that my son is going to be an NBA player, right? And it's so hard to get that, because they're living their life through what they believe their child is going to be. He's going to be a football player. He's going to be, yeah. And I go, wait a minute, when do you stop? I don't know. I mean, through the things that you're doing with how do you help that parent realize that, they don't need to coach the team? They got to be out there yelling at the coach all the time. Don't even know. I mean, they think they know the rules, but they don't know how to coach a kid in order to be better. They just know how to yell. It's just like, it blows me away that they can be so ingrained on what their kid is going to do that they miss out on all the experiences to help that kid find what he's great at.
Absolutely. So I work with athletes as well, right? Because it's the mindset. But the first thing is I have to get to each of the parents to understand is that I'm a factual, logical type person. So all of those emotions and feelings, oh, little Johnny's so amazing. No, little Johnny's just little Johnny. And I love little Johnny, but there's also 10,000 other little Johnnies that want the same position. And I always tell the parents, you know what? We have to make sure that it's the child who wants that goal, that achievement, right? It's not you who didn't get to be that, do that, and have that, right? Like a lot of us, I was this close. And one of my favorite shows, you probably remember this, is Married with Children, right? One time in Pope High, I scored 4 touchdowns in a single game. I never like to talk about what I did in the past. It's what I do today. So like, if you ask me, did I have records? Absolutely. And a lot of the parents, the first thing I have to do is I have to do what I call punch them in the face a little bit. I have to bring truth to them. Hey, are you a great athlete? Were you a D1 athlete? Do you eat like a D1 athlete? Do you train like a D1 athlete today? Then you really need to let the coaches do the coaching and you do the parenting, right? And that's the first paradigm we have. And then the second one, I say, are you walking your talk? You keep telling your son what he needs to do. If he's going to be a great athlete, he needs to get up at 5:30 a.m. and work out. Well, let me tell you, my son doesn't beat me to the gym. So I do the talking and the walking, right? And that's the difference. So when I say we need to get out there, he can't say, I'm like, hey, you went to college last year and came back 5 pounds, 10 pounds heavier. I've been the same weight for the last 12 years, right? So I believe that if you're a parent and you want your kids to be great athletes, you don't have to be out there hitting balls, but you got to lead from the front. You can't lead from the back and tell them what you did. Show them what you're doing today, and they'll do more than what you do than what you say.
Wow, that is so good. So good. Final question I have is just about living in purpose, in the spiritual side of what it means to live in purpose. And I think that you've arrived there where you're living in your purpose. And what does that mean and how do we get there?
Have to sit on that one for a second, because I do believe that I'm in the present moment, I'm doing some things that I love doing, but I am not even close to where I want to be and what I will create. So when you say living in purpose, it's like, am I able to show up with you with energy this afternoon, have a great conversation with you? Absolutely. And I'm blessed to be here. But I think anyone living, you got to find something that lights you up inside. And for me, it was not having a father. It was having a mother who lied to me about my dad and told me that this man was my dad. I find out he wasn't. And still to this day, I don't have a father. So what I want to be to those who I get to serve is be that mentor, that coach, that person that could be their North Star for success, but not telling them what success is, but leading them towards finding it for themselves. That is what I love to do. That is my purpose.
Well, and then I think of your purpose is your capacity for what your purpose is going to be will probably change. It probably won't be the same as it is today as it is 10 years. Why? Because we're growing, we're learning, we're in different rooms, but if we're doing, I think, what God has called us to do in serving others, we are going to hit that in stride, and we'll look back in 10, 50, oh man, remember when I thought that was my purpose? God, you threw that out the window and you put me here, but being able to move through that, I think, is incredible. So I just want to thank you. That has been an incredible talk. As I told people before, this is one that you're going to want to listen to. I hope you're going to take notes. You can see my page and my page as I keep going through of all the things that you have grown me as a person, and in my spirit, just more excited about getting out there and doing more. So I thank you for that. I thank you for being here. Hopefully we can check back and do this again in a year or something and do some stuff, because you are blessed, and you are a man who is going somewhere. I think people should absolutely listen to you and the things that you say. So for those of you who are watching, this is why you subscribe. This is why you hit the notification button. This is why you share these with people, because in order for us to grow as a community, in order for us to grow as men, in order for us just to grow, period, we have to be around, folks that are going in the right direction. And for some of us, we can't be in those rooms because we don't know people. But this equalizer called technology allows us to be in rooms with some incredible people. And today you just experienced that. And so share this with other people. I can't wait to see you on the next one. You guys have a wonderful, incredible day. Don't forget, you are God's greatest gift, and he loves you if you allow him to. One more thought you have, Rahz?
Yes, absolutely. Life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. So go out there and live a daring life. Boom!
I love it. You guys have a great day.